Personally, I thought Air Canada would be a very, very good airline to fly on, but I'm unsure I would ever go back again. So currently I live in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and my parents live in the Middle East. They live in Oman. And every winter break and spring break, I tend to go all the way back to the Middle East and spend a couple of weeks or around a month there. This is my first year in Pittsburgh, so it was a new experience flying to the Middle East from here. And it's only supposed to take 17 hours from Pittsburgh Airport to Muscat International Airport. However, it ended up taking 50, what was it? It ended up taking 58 hours. Okay, so my journey began in Pittsburgh and I was supposed to have a connecting flight in Toronto. I had a layover of around 2 hours there. And then I was supposed to fly from Toronto all the way to Frankfurt and then Frankfurt onto Muscat. It's a fairly straightforward route, and that's probably the quickest way I can get to the Middle East. I had checked in, I'd gone through security, and I had just reached my gate. And as I was approaching my gate, there was someone on the loudspeaker at the gate, and I thought they were boarding. It turns out that there was a winter storm, as they put it, in Toronto that made us have a 3-hour delay. So that meant that I was already missing my connecting flight onwards to Frankfurt. So I landed in Toronto around 8 o'clock. My flight out of Pittsburgh was at like 6. I went straight to an Air Canada desk at the international terminal to figure out what I can do because they had delayed my flight, so they had to get me on a new one and find a new route for me. I got to the Air Canada desk. There was 25 people in front of me, and I knew the next flight to Dubai was around 2 hours away. So I thought, oh, I had plenty of time to try hop onto that Dubai flight. And then from Dubai to Muscat is a 45-minute flight. So I was in luck as long as there were seats. That didn't happen. I ended up standing in that line for 6 hours. It was not until midnight that I got seen to. The line grew and grew. And I was actually one of the people considered at the front. This line went through the whole terminal and it just wouldn't move. I didn't move for 2 hours. It was like half an hour for every person to be seen, and there was only 2 or 3 people at the Air Canada desk. As you can imagine, people got hot-headed and lots of shouting started to break out. I don't put this on the employees at the desk. They were calling their management asking for more people to actually be at the desk. That never happened. No one else ever appeared. The same employees that were there when I arrived were the same employees that were still there when I left. And they said they had missed their lunch break. They had missed going home by 2 hours. It was crazy. So what ended up happening was at midnight, I was finally seen to. They said that I could get a flight tomorrow. I would make it to Muscat the very next day. They found me a flight to London, and then London to Abu Dhabi, and then Abu Dhabi to Muscat. The journey was a lot longer than it should have been, but at that point, when I'd already been standing in line for 6 hours and I knew there was no way I was getting to Oman that night, I was going to take anything. They said they would put me up in a hotel. So I was given a voucher to Crown Plaza. I didn't have to pay anything apart from one of those deposits. And my flight wasn't going to be for another 24 hours. They said my bag would be in the luggage hall, go pick up your bag, and then head to the airport and come back the next day. So I went to the luggage hall, and you guessed it, they didn't have my bag. They had no idea where my bag was. They didn't know if it was in Frankfurt, if it was on the flight to Frankfurt, if it was still in Toronto, if they'd sent it back to Pittsburgh. They had no idea. They said it was probably somewhere in the international departure hall, but there were so many bags there that they recommended me just going to the hotel and coming back the next morning. So I went to the hotel. I slept and I came back to the airport 6 hours early. I went to the Air Canada desk and they said they didn't have my bag. They had no idea where my bag was. And that my next flight should have been operated by Lufthansa. So I had to go to the Lufthansa desk. I went to the Lufthansa desk. They said Air Canada had it. My hair's stuck. Don't, Okay. Oops. It's on my shirt now. So after standing at the Lufthansa desk for a while and them trying to actually find it because they had the initiative that Air Canada didn't, they eventually contacted me saying they've got someone on the case trying to find my bag. They did find my bag, Lufthansa. Thank you so much. You did an awesome job. You were super efficient and you helped me 10 times more than Air Canada ever did that day. Air Canada is probably one of the worst organized airlines I've ever been on, and I've gone on tons of budget airlines on holidays. Most recently with Michaela, when we went to LA, we were with Spirit and it was smooth sailing. But Air Canada, the reason that they messed up so badly with the baggage, with the delays at the check-in desk, with the delays at the customer service desk, is because they decided to implement a new system at Christmas. The most busy time of year, they decided to implement a new system. And apparently, none of the employees had any idea of how to actually use the system. They were utterly confused. When you implement a system at the busiest time of the year and you don't have employees well trained and well rehearsed in what to do with the system, that's what's going to happen. Is you're going to have a ton of angry people, sleepy people, tired people. Luckily, I only came from Pittsburgh, but there's people who came from Africa that were trying to get all the way to the other side of the US, and they were exhausted, and they had little kids, babies, children, and they were totally fed up with Air Canada, and I sympathize with them. Yeah, they gave me a free hotel room, and they gave me a $15 voucher, but I missed 2 days of being home in Oman, so I don't really have that much sympathy for them. After all the hassle with my bag, I managed to actually get through onto my flight to London. I landed in London, had a couple hours there before heading to Abu Dhabi, and then onto Muscat. Yeah, it was hell, because when you're flying internationally and you just want to get home and an airline is confused in how to work their own system, it's not a good look. Personally, I thought Air Canada would be a very, very good airline to fly on, but I'm unsure I would ever go back again. Permanent jet lag from the 58-hour flight. It's what I have.